Hello and a very warm welcome. You're watching Gravitas with me, Molly Gambhir. Let's get started. On Gravitas tonight, our top story focuses on the Russia-Ukraine war. Russian President Vladimir Putin has vowed revenge against the Ukrainian forces after the Kazan attack. But what will that revenge look like? Will North Korean troops lead Moscow's revenge attacks? What lies ahead? Stay with us as we decode that and more. And here's a look at what else is lined up for you on the show tonight. We tell you what an Oxfam report says about aid trickling into Gaza and how Israel has reacted. What happens after January 20, after Donald Trump takes over as the United States president? Is Trump trying to redraw the American map? We tell you why that question is being asked. How fast is your mind really? How fast is the human mind? We tell you what a new research says. All this and more coming up. Our top story tonight on Gravitas focuses on how the Russia-Ukraine war has reached a crucial juncture. Russian President Vladimir Putin has vowed revenge against the Ukrainian forces after the Kazan attack. But what will that revenge look like? How will Putin respond? Will the North Korean troops lead Moscow's revenge attacks? Here's why that question is being asked. Thousands of North Korean troops are already stationed in Russia, and now South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff, or the JCS, believes that Pyongyang is planning to send additional military support to Russia. In fact, the JCS said that it has detected signs of North Korea preparing to send more troops and weapons, including suicide drones, after North Korean leader Kim Jong-un guided a test last month. In fact, a JCS official reportedly said suicide drones are one of the tasks that Kim Jong-un has focused on, adding that the North had expressed its intention to give them to Russia. This is extremely significant and has far-reaching implications. According to Seoul, Washington and Kiev, there are roughly 12,000 North Korean soldiers in Russia. According to the JCS, at least 1,100 of them were killed or injured, in line with the South Korean spy agency's briefing from last week, which stated that there were about 100 fatalities and 1,000 injuries in the Kursk region. The thing is, in the full-scale conflict with Ukraine, North Korea has been Russia's crucial ally, from supplying troops in addition to artillery munitions and ballistic missiles. In fact, in June, the two countries inked a defense treaty that said either state to render military aid to the other in the event of an attack. The news of North Korea preparing to send more troops to Russia comes with the Kazan attack in the backdrop. The attack on the Russian city on Saturday evoked a chilling resemblance to the 9/11 attacks in the United States. Eyewitness footage showed the moment of purported Ukrainian drones hitting a residential building. 6 Ukrainian drones reportedly hit residential buildings in Kazan, and a 7th struck an industrial facility. Videos on Russian social media showed drones hitting a high-rise glass building and setting off fireballs. No injuries were reported, but the media reports indicated that 3 people suffered cuts from shattered window glass. The attack on Kazan, about 800 kilometers east of Moscow, came a day after Russian strikes on the Ukrainian capital Kiev killed 1 person and injured 13, and after 5 were killed by a Ukrainian attack on the Russian border region of Kursk. And following the attack, the Russian president has issued a new warning. During a televised government meeting, Putin said whoever and however much they try to destroy, they will face many times more destruction themselves and will regret what they are trying to do in our country, quote unquote. The strike on Kazan was the latest in a series of escalating aerial attacks in the nearly 3-year conflict. Earlier, Putin had threatened to target the center of Kiev with a hypersonic ballistic missile in response to Ukrainian attacks on Russian territory. Putin's ultimatum coincides with Russia's assertion of fresh military victories in eastern Ukraine. On Telegram, the Ministry of Defense said that its forces had liberated the Ukrainian town of Krasnoye, also known as Sivka, and the village of Lozova in the northeastern Kharkiv region. Russia is accelerating its advances across eastern Ukraine in recent months and is looking to secure as much territory, especially at a time when US President-elect Donald Trump will come in power in January. Just weeks to go for that. Trump, remember, has promised to bring an end to the 3-year-long war. And even before taking office, he has, it seems, started laying the groundwork for a possible ceasefire. On Sunday, Trump claimed that Putin had expressed a desire to meet with him as soon as possible to discuss the war in Ukraine. However, the Kremlin spokesperson, Dmitry Peskov, has denied any such claims. Responding to a question on the possibility of any meeting, he said, so far, there have been no real impulses. Remember, last week itself, during an annual press conference, Putin stated he was ready for potential talks with Trump. The president-elect also recently said Ukraine will possibly receive less military aid once he takes office, and that statement carries far-reaching implications for Ukraine. And as the Ukrainian forces struggle to hold off Russia's army on the battlefield and Trump pushes for a ceasefire, there is now a growing unease in Europe. The NATO chief has publicly pulled up Zelensky for criticizing Olaf Scholz. This is at a time when another NATO member, Slovakia, is reaffirming its ties with Russia. What's really going on? Our next report taking a closer look.
Russian artillery thunders across the Donetsk front. Ukrainian soldiers, outgunned and undermanned, struggle to hold their positions. These images released by Russia show its army bombing and apparently seizing a village near Pokrovsk. Moscow says that it launched strikes on multiple Ukrainian military targets, including the infrastructure of a Ukrainian military airport and drone factories. The Ukrainian troops claim to have successfully repelled multiple Russian offensives. The battlefronts are gradually shifting in Russia's favor. President Vladimir Zelensky is cornered, and NATO is showing cracks in its once solid resolve. Zelensky's sharp criticism of German Chancellor Olaf Scholz over the delay in supplying long-range Taurus missiles has sparked discord. Germany remains a critical ally, but its hesitation frustrates Kyiv. NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte says that harsh criticism of German Chancellor Olaf Scholz by the Ukrainian president is clearly unjustified. Now, Slovakia, a NATO member, has taken a step closer towards Russia. Prime Minister Robert Fico's surprise meeting with President Vladimir Putin highlights this alarming shift. Fico, a vocal critic of European support for Kyiv, argues against a military resolution to the war. While Kyiv is showing increasing willingness to enter into ceasefire talks, the Kremlin says there are currently no plans for President Vladimir Putin to meet with US President-elect Donald Trump. This comes 2 days after Putin expressed willingness to speak to Trump for peace talks to end Russia's war against Ukraine. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Our next story is about Gaza's starving children. The situation is heartbreaking. They need urgent assistance. But what's happening on the ground seems to be a far cry from that. According to Oxfam, of the 34 trucks of food and water given permission to enter the North Gaza Governorate over the last 2.5 months, just 12 managed to distribute aid to starving Palestinian civilians. Only 12. As per Oxfam, this is because of deliberate delays and systematic obstructions by the Israeli military. It says that for 3 of the trucks, once the food and water had been delivered to the school where people were sheltering, it was then cleared and shelled within hours. Let me tell you what this would boil down to. Just 12 aid trucks of food and water into the North Gaza Governorate in 2.5 months. This is a story of misery, unimaginable horror and desperation. Meanwhile, the Israeli authorities have reportedly rejected the report, saying it was deliberately and inaccurately ignoring their humanitarian efforts, quote unquote. On Saturday, Pope Francis once again seemed to condemn Israeli airstrikes in Gaza. He said, I'm quoting, "Yesterday children were bombed. This is cruelty. This is not war. I wanted to say this because it touches the heart," quote unquote. Note the use of the word cruelty. By the way, just for context here, this was a day after an Israeli government minister publicly denounced the pontiff for suggesting the global community should study whether the military offensive there constitutes a genocide of the Palestinian people. Israeli Minister of Diaspora Affairs, Amichai Chikli, sharply criticized those comments, saying that the Pope's remarks amounted to a quote-unquote trivialization of the term genocide. Let's just tell you more about what Oxfam said. According to it, barefoot children have been forced to search through rubbish for food scraps across Gaza. It says, I'm quoting, thousands of people are estimated to still be cut off, but with humanitarian access blocked, it's impossible to know exact numbers. At the beginning of December, humanitarian organizations operating in Gaza were receiving calls from vulnerable people trapped in homes and shelters that had completely run out of food and water, quote unquote. Just for context here, Israel has tightly controlled aid entering the Hamas-ruled territory since the outbreak of the war, and it often blames what it says is the inability of relief organizations to handle and distribute large quantities of aid. In the latest, the Israeli Defense Ministry body coordinating Palestinian civilian affairs has reportedly slammed the Oxfam report. It reportedly told news agency AFP, I'm quoting, the Oxfam report deliberately and inaccurately ignores the extensive humanitarian efforts made by Israel in the northern Gaza Strip, quote unquote. Going on to say, quoting further, since October, over 2,100 aid trucks have entered the northern Gaza Strip. according to it, insisting that specific shipments, including food, water and medical supplies, had been dispatched to northern Gaza areas of Beit Hanun, Beit Lahia and Jabalia. On Thursday, New York-based Human Rights Watch detailed what it called deliberate efforts by Israeli authorities of a systematic nature to deprive Gazans of water, which had likely caused thousands of deaths and will likely continue to cause deaths. They were the latest in a series of accusations leveled against Israel and denied by the country during this war against Hamas. In fact, according to Oxfam's Middle East and North Africa director, the situation in Gaza is apocalyptic and people are trapped, unable to find any kind of safety. The absolute desperation of having no food or shelter for your family in the biting cold of winter. Those were the words used. Adding that Gaza has been widely destroyed and the entire population is suffering. Going on to say that the public sector has collapsed and the humanitarian system is on its knees, quote unquote. Meanwhile, according to Palestinian medics, Israeli airstrikes on the Gaza Strip overnight killed at least 20 people. One of the airstrikes reportedly hit a tent camp in the so-called humanitarian zone of Al-Mawasi, which has been targeted by Israeli airstrikes before and is reportedly overcrowded. The airstrike reportedly killed 8 people, including 2 children. All this amid desperate expectations of a ceasefire and harsh, biting winter conditions. On to the United States now. Is America's map going to change once Trump takes office? What happens after he takes over? Here's why that question is being asked. On Sunday, President-elect Donald Trump said the U.S. should seek to gain control of Greenland after he threatened to take over the Panama Canal by force. According to reports, U.S. President-elect Donald Trump has threatened to demand the return of the Panama Canal to the U.S. if what he described as ridiculous passage fees for American vessels continued to be charged. In fact, in a post on social media platform Truth Social, Trump remarked, and I'm quoting here, "The Panama Canal is considered a vital national asset for the United States due to its critical role in America's economy and national security." What's more, Trump also strongly criticized the tolls levied, which can reportedly range from as low as $0.50 to as high as $300,000. Speaking to a crowd of supporters in Arizona, Trump also said he would not let the canal fall into the wrong hands. This while he warned of potential Chinese influence on the passage. Responding to this in a video message, the president of Panama dismissed Trump's suggestion. Not just that, he also defended the passage rates Panama charges, saying they were not set on a whim. Listen in.
I want to express that every square meter of the Panama Canal and its adjacent areas belong to Panama and will continue to belong to Panama. The sovereignty and independence of our country are not negotiable.
In response, Trump posted a photo of the U.S. flag over the canal with the text, "Welcome to the United States Canal." What triggered this? You see, in 1914, the U.S. completed the construction of the canal and managed it until December 31, 1999. However, since that very date, the control was officially handed over to Panama. This was done based on treaties signed in 1997. What's more, the U.S. is reportedly the largest user of the canal. Not just Panama, Trump has also expressed his wish for taking control of Greenland from Denmark, asserting it to be an absolute necessity. Trump has said that he wanted to buy and control Greenland. However, it seems that Trump's interest in Greenland is not that new after all. In fact, he had his eyes set on this territory earlier as well. What does all of this suggest? What happens really after January 20 when Trump officially takes over as the United States president? Remember, just a few days back, Trump had trolled the Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau by suggesting that Canada should become the 51st state of the United States and that Trudeau must become the governor. Once Trump takes over on January 20, is this what America's map is going to look like according to Trump? Meanwhile, as Trump is making statements like these, there's also the issue of migrants, something that he has been extremely vocal about. Speaking of which, some disturbing news has emerged from a New York subway. Before we tell you more, viewer discretion is strictly advised. In a shocking incident, reportedly on Sunday morning, a man had allegedly set the clothes of a woman on fire and burnt her to death while she was traveling in a subway train in New York. According to law enforcement officials, the suspect, reported to be a migrant from Guatemala, was apprehended at the different Manhattan subway station approximately 8 hours after the crime took place. Let's just break this down for you. According to the New York Police Department, the woman, who has not been identified yet, had boarded a train. This was at the subway station in Brooklyn in the early hours of morning when the man approached her reportedly and used a lighter to set her clothing on fire. As per the authorities, the woman may have also been sleeping when the attacker approached her, as the fire fully engulfed her in a matter of seconds. Rushing to her rescue, the police officers on patrol even used fire extinguishers to put out the fire and save her life. However, unfortunately, it was too late by then. The woman was already pronounced dead by the emergency responders. What's even more horrifying is the fact that the man reportedly watched on calmly as the woman was set ablaze. Commenting on the incident, authorities have condemned this to be a brutal murder and an example of depraved behavior on the man's part.
All right, so like I said, that's going to be part of the investigation. She's definitely there. She's motionless. So to say if she's asleep or not, we're not 100% sure, but it appears that she's motionless at that spot. There is no interaction between the two. And when the incident happens, there is no interaction between the two.
The incident has sent shock waves naturally. Taking to X, Tesla CEO Elon Musk, in fact, also shared his frustration of the incident as he posted a CCTV image of the suspect with the caption, "Enough is enough." But who is the man? What's the story here? And what made him take such an extreme step? That too in broad daylight. As per the New York City Chief of Transit, the man has been identified as 33-year-old Sebastian Zabetta and arrested him. Now, Zabetta is not a native, but someone who immigrated to the US from Guatemala in 2018. Authorities are currently verifying the details of his immigration status, whether he entered the country legally or illegally. You see, as per police data, subway attacks in the US are not that uncommon. As of November, there had been 9 homicides reported on the subway in 2024 compared to 5 in the same period in 2023. But what really is leading to these unprecedented attacks? Is it the migrant crisis that is prompting many to cross borders and resort to crimes due to money, better living conditions perhaps? You see, as per USAID, Guatemala has a long history of migration to the US, Canada and Mexico due to political violence and instability, lack of economic opportunities, human rights abuses and inequalities. And those who take this path are at a higher risk of becoming victims of human trafficking, sexual violence, or turn into offenders themselves. How can this be checked? Rather, what is the way out? And Donald Trump is less than 4 weeks away from taking charge. As he continues to assemble his core cabinet, he has hit back at the criticism of Democrats that Elon Musk is eyeing the US presidency. Our next report looks at Trump's friends, family, and business and tells you more about why this question is being asked.
Trump's nominations and his team have raised eyebrows. From having the world's richest man to his family members in top spots, Trump is shaping up his presidency. Our next story takes a look at Trump's friends, family, and politics. Less than a month away from taking the reins of the Oval Office, President-elect Donald Trump is assembling a core team that blurs the lines between politics, family, and business.
Nice to win the election.
Trump is defending his unconventional choices while brushing aside criticisms. Trump hit back at accusations that billionaire Elon Musk is the real power behind the US president-elect.
But no, he's not going to be president, that I can tell you. And I'm safe. You know why? He can't be. He wasn't born in this country. But the fake news knows that.
Democrats have derided Musk's prominent role in the transition, dubbing him President Musk and accusing Trump of ceding control. Trump has hit back, asserting that he alone will steer his administration, despite Musk's visible presence in shaping policies and appointments. Donald Trump's latest appointments are raising eyebrows as family connections take the spotlight. Ivanka Trump's father-in-law, Charles Kushner, has been named ambassador to France, while Tiffany Trump's father-in-law, Massad Boulos, steps into a role as Middle East advisor. Experts say that these picks reflect Trump's hallmark leadership style, prioritizing loyalty and familial ties over traditional expertise. Interestingly, two key family members have decided to step away from the political spotlight. Ivanka Trump, a defining figure during her father's presidency, has announced she will focus on her family rather than re-enter politics. She is not alone. Now Lara Trump has withdrawn from Senate considerations, though Lara says she had a big announcement to share in January without giving further details. As Trump prepares to assume office as the 47th President of the United States, his cabinet choices and Musk's influence spotlight a presidency that promises to challenge conventional political boundaries. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Shifting focus now to Bangladesh, trouble continues to mount for Sheikh Hasina as she faces a fresh corruption probe. Bangladesh's Anti-Corruption Commission has launched an investigation into the alleged $5 billion embezzlement connected to a Russian-backed nuclear power plant by Hasina and her family. Along with Hasina, those subjected to the inquiry, including her son, Sajid Wazid Joy, and niece, Tulip Siddiq, a British lawmaker and government minister. Key allegations are reportedly connected to the funding of the $12.65 billion nuclear plant, the South Asian country's first, which is bankrolled by Moscow with a 90% loan. A special team, in fact, has been formed to examine the allegations of questionable procurement practices related to the overpriced construction of the plant. However, there has been no immediate response, neither from Hasina nor her party. The ousted leader, remember, has been living in India ever since she fled Bangladesh amid a massive protest that brought her down her regime. In fact, the interim Bangladesh government has written a diplomatic note to India. Dhaka has urged New Delhi to send back Hasina for the judicial process. However, India has refused to comment on Hasina's extradition. Remember, the Dhaka-based International Crimes Tribunal has issued arrest warrants to Hasina and her ministers, advisors, and former military and civil officials. It has accused them of crimes against humanity and genocide. On the other hand, a committee known as National Citizens Committee is set to form a new political party in Bangladesh. The new party, led by Anti-Discrimination Student Movement and Jatiya Nagore Committee, is expected to be formed by February next year. The recent fall of Bashar al-Assad's regime in Syria has raised crucial questions about the future of the country's notorious Captagon trade, also called the poor man's cocaine. This highly addictive pill was a major source of revenue for the regime, with estimates reportedly suggesting it generated around $5.6 billion annually. The Captagon trade has its roots in the early 2010s, when the Syrian regime began to produce and export the pill as a way to basically generate revenue. And with its economy broken by the war, sanctions, and the mass displacement of Syrians abroad, the Captagon trade quickly grew, with the pill finding its way into the hands of young users in countries like Saudi Arabia, Jordan, Lebanon, reportedly. Captagon was the brand name of a stimulant first produced in Germany in the 1960s to help treat attention conditions, including deficit disorders and narcolepsy. It was discontinued, but an illicit version of the drug reportedly continued to be produced in Eastern Europe and later in the Arab world. While the drug continues to ravage West Asia, Captagon has been banned by many countries, including the US, due to its harmful side effects. Some of the side effects include psychosis, visual hallucinations, visual distortions, acute heart failure, seizures. The Captagon trade has fueled violence and corruption, with criminal gangs and corrupt officials reportedly profiting from the trade. In fact, as per reports, the Assad regime has been deeply involved in the Captagon trade following the ouster of Bashar al-Assad. Videos filmed by Syrians raiding properties allegedly owned by relatives of Assad show rooms full of pills being made and packaged, hidden in fake industrial products. Reuters reports captured footage of an abandoned site in the city of Duma. Here, rebel fighters reportedly gave access to reporters, showing how thousands of pills were hidden in furniture, fruit, decorative pebbles, and voltage stabilizers stacked on pallets with a trailer waiting outside. Many of the pills were stamped with the double crescent logo or the word Lexus that identifies Captagon pills. When Ahmad al-Shara and his group, Hayat Tahrir al-Sham, arrived in Damascus, the rebel leader said that Syria has become the biggest producer of Captagon on earth and vowed to purify the country. But there is a broader question here. What effect will the loss of such a lucrative trade really have on Syria's economy? Captagon trade has provided livelihood, after all, to millions of Syrians. Experts believe it will be difficult to simply cut them off without providing alternative sources of income. Once al-Shara cracks down on the trade, there are fears that alternative drugs like crystal meth will fill the void. Experts say in order to address the issue, the role of the international community in providing support and resources to Hayat Tahrir al-Sham will be crucial to address the issue. Shifting focus for now, the federal indictment against a former New York governor's aide who was accused of being a Chinese agent this year revealed Beijing's unexpected interest in state-level governance in the US. And in the latest, a Chinese man was reportedly arrested this week on charges of acting as an illegal agent for Beijing while serving as the campaign manager for a Los Angeles area politician. The case basically highlights a rising concern of how the Chinese government has created a network of operatives to influence US politicians and advance their interests. Yaoning Mike Sun was arrested by the US authorities last week on charges that he worked for the Chinese government while attempting to elect an unidentified politician to a city council in Southern California. Authorities also accused Sun of conspiring with another Chinese man, Chen Jun, who was sentenced to 20 months last month for acting as an illegal agent of the Chinese government. Apart from the US, there is a growing concern over China's influence in UK politics and institutions. In fact, recent reports have warned that China is targeting political figures in the UK in order to gain influence. Reports emerging that a Chinese spy was a confidant of UK's Prince Andrew. Prince Andrew's business venture is believed to have received money from Chinese donors with links to an alleged Communist Party spy. This comes after the alleged spy was banned from the UK on national security grounds. The Chinese spy, named Yang Tengbo, is accused of having an unusual degree of trust with Prince Andrew and was authorized to represent him in business meetings with Chinese investors. He also attended Andrew's 60th birthday party in 2020. Tengbo has denied the allegations, claiming he has done nothing unlawful and that the label of spy is completely false. Recent reports have warned that China is targeting political figures in the UK to gain influence. Tengbo is alleged to have worked for China's United Front Work Department, a branch of the Communist Party focused on influencing politicians overseas. The case is part of a larger picture of increased Chinese activity in Britain, with two men facing trial for breaching the Official Secrets Act on behalf of China. Meanwhile, tensions are on the rise between China and the Philippines. Manila has announced its plans to deploy mid-range missiles to strengthen defenses in the South China Sea. China has called the move provocative, warning that it could aggravate regional stability. The Philippine military explaining that the decision comes amid growing concerns over China's military presence in the disputed waters. Earlier this year, the U.S. deployed its Typhoon mid-range missile system in northern Philippines, further heightening tensions in the region. China has long opposed U.S. military assistance to the Philippines, viewing it as a threat to its influence in the South China Sea and the wider region.
The deployment of this strategic and aggressive weapon by the Philippine side is a provocative and dangerous move that stokes regional tensions and intensifies geopolitical confrontation and arms race in collusion with non-regional countries. It is an extremely irresponsible choice for the history and people of itself and the whole of Southeast Asia, as well as for the security of the region.
Under President Biden, the U.S. has strengthened military alliances in the region, particularly to counter China's growing ambitions, including any potential conflict over Taiwan. The situation remains fragile, with both sides not ruling out the possibility of further escalation. Meanwhile, China has pushed back against Canadian sanctions, defending measures taken against 2 Canadian institutions and 20 individuals involved in human rights issues in Xinjiang and Tibet. The sanctions include freezing assets and restricting visas, targeting both rights advocacy groups and their employees. As these global tensions unfold, the situation in the South China Sea remains a crucial flashpoint, with military moves and diplomatic pressure escalating between China and the Philippines. The U.S. is keeping a close watch as far as the developments are concerned. Shifting focus, the German government has pledged to fully investigate if there was any security lapse during the Christmas market attack that killed 5 and left over 200 injured. The German government is under political pressure, remember, over a potential missed warning about Saudi Arabia's suspect Talib al-Abdul Mohsen. The 50-year-old psychiatrist had made online death threats and previously had trouble with the law. As per reports, Germany's Interior Minister, Nancy Faeser, and the heads of Germany's domestic and foreign intelligence services are due to answer questions at the parliamentary committee hearing on December 30th. Faeser vowed that no stones will be left unturned to reveal information available with the security forces.
At this stage, the only thing we can say is that the perpetrator was clearly Islamophobic. We can already confirm that. Everything else is subject to further investigations. We'll have to wait and see.
At least 5 people were killed, over 200 were injured as a car rammed into the Christmas market in the eastern German town. The suspect drove through a gap in the security bollard at around 7 p.m. At 7:02 p.m., he crossed the old market alley through a crowd of shoppers. Off-duty officer pursued the BMW on foot as he turned out of the market past the city hall. Taleb Al-Abdul Mohsen was arrested outside the shopping center.
Ihnen Heilung und Menschen, die mit ihnen aushalten.
Zambian police have arrested two men accused of plotting to harm the country's president using witchcraft. The suspects, a Mozambican national and a local village chief, were apprehended in the capital. Authorities saying they were found with a range of charms, including a live chameleon, and were believed to be practicing as witch doctors. Police alleging reportedly that the men were hired by the brother of an opposition member of parliament. The MP is currently facing trial for robbery, attempted murder, and escaping custody. The pair has been charged with animal cruelty and expected to appear in court. The incident has raised questions about the interplay of politics, superstition, and law in the country. Human beings are generally considered to be the most intelligent species on planet Earth. We have larger brains relative to our body size than any other mammal. But how fast can we think really? Well, scientists have managed to determine the exact speed of our thoughts. Just how fast is the human mind? Our next story telling you more.
The human mind, a marvel of evolution, has long mystified scientists. It navigates dreams, calculates risks, and sparks innovation. Each decision, memory, and idea moves at a precise speed. But how fast does it truly work? A groundbreaking study has revealed the astonishingly slow pace of human thought. While our senses bombard us with a barrage of information, 1 billion bits per second, the brain, remarkably, can only process mere 10 bits per second. This is rather slow compared to the lightning-fast processing of modern computers, suggesting a fundamental constraint on human cognition. The findings were published in the journal Neuron, explaining that this limitation explains why we struggle to juggle multiple thoughts simultaneously. It restricts our ability to explore many possibilities, forcing us to navigate the mental landscape one step at a time. This speed limit isn't a design flaw, it's an evolutionary feature. This despite our brain having 86 billion neurons. Each neuron connects to the other, forming over 100 trillion synaptic conditions. Researchers say this inherent slowness may stem from the evolutionary origins of the nervous system. Early organisms primarily relied on basic survival mechanisms for finding food and evading predators. While the brain's speed seems slow compared to modern technology, this limitation is not a drawback. It allows us to focus and make deliberate decisions.
Researchers of Korea Advanced Institute of Science and Technology, South Korea, have developed a lightweight wearable robot which can walk up to the users and lock itself onto them, enabling them to walk and perform all or some of the day-to-day activities. Their aim basically is to seamlessly integrate into the daily lives of these people. Take a look. Prayagraj is gearing up to host the Maha Kumbh Mela, a spiritual gathering of unprecedented scale, with millions of pilgrims expected. The city is undergoing a massive transformation, from new lighting systems to stunning murals. Here's how Prayagraj is being beautified for that iconic event. Our special correspondent, Johan Castell, getting you this detailed report.
One of the largest religious gatherings in India, the Maha Kumbh, is celebrated as a significant event of faith and spirituality. As the countdown to Maha Kumbh 2025 begins, the city of Prayagraj in Uttar Pradesh is undergoing an extensive restoration drive to accommodate the needs of tens of thousands of devotees from around the world.
We are at the site in Prayagraj where they are preparing for the Kumbh Mela, and with an estimated 150,000 tents that will be set up on the riverbanks of the rivers meeting in Prayagraj, there are a lot of different things that needs to be taken into account with infrastructure, everything from roads to power to sanitation, and of course lighting.
Evolving into a vibrant canvas of culture, art and innovation, the Uttar Pradesh administration is leaving no stone unturned to create an unforgettable experience for the millions of visitors. From lighting up the streets to painting the walls, the city is being transformed into a visual and spiritual paradise. As part of the beautification initiative, around 67,000 LED streetlights and 2,000 solar hybrid lights are being installed across the site.
When we came in here in the morning, it was so bright. You can see all these different LED lights in these panels. There's so many of them and they are super, super bright. So it definitely feels like the whole Kumbh Mela setup this time around is a much more modern one. It's like we're coming in and seeing a whole new generation of technology that has been applied.
Even the street walls of Prayagraj have turned into a vast canvas, with mythological artworks enhancing the city's landscape. Over 70 artists are working tirelessly to paint large murals across the city.
हर तरह की पेंटिंग्स है, उसमें आपका जैसे बर्ड्स, एनिमल्स और आपका आध्यात्मिक लगभग हर थीम यहाँ दी जा रही है कि कहीं से भी कोई भी पर्सन अगर मेले में आ रहा है तो यहाँ पर हमारी पेंटिंग्स को देखकर एक अलग सा अट्रैक्शन उनके मन में हो.
When I spoke with one of the painters, I asked him what was the budget for this whole beautification drive across Prayagraj. He told me that it is over 50 crore Indian rupees, or about $5.8 million. He told me that there is no expense spared in making sure that this Kumbh Mela is a grand event.
With preparations like these, the city of Prayagraj is coming alive for the grand and divine event of Maha Kumbh 2025.
Legendary filmmaker Shyam Benegal has passed away at the age of 90. Widely regarded as one of the greatest visionaries in Indian cinema, the filmmaker took his last breath at 6:30 p.m. IST in Mumbai, where he had been undergoing treatment for chronic kidney disease. A towering figure in Indian cinema and a respected figure of the parallel cinema movement, Shyam Benegal's legacy is hard to forget, of course. Over his illustrious long career, the filmmaker delivered some masterpieces like Uncle Bhumika, The Role, Manthan, Nishant. Benegal, who made his filmmaking debut in 1974, earned a nomination for the Palme d'Or in the 1976 Cannes Film Festival for his film Nishant. The movie, which features a cast of luminaries like Girish Karnad, Shabana Azmi, Anant Nag, Amrish Puri, Smita Patil, Nasiruddin Shah, remains a testament to his mastery in filmmaking. But that's not all. During his long career, Benegal earned numerous accolades, including the prestigious Dada Saheb Phalke Award, India's highest honor in the field of cinema, and an impressive 18 National Film Awards. Staying on with news from India, the Hyderabad stampede case continues to haunt renowned Indian actor Allu Arjun. Protesters stormed the actor's house and vandalized his property reportedly. They sought accountability for the death of a woman in the stampede during the premiere of his film Pushpa 2 at a theatre in the city. The group of protesters, believed to be members of Osmania University's Joint Action Committee, barged into the actor's residence. They